Good afternoon, dear friends. You are on the channel Military Reporter. Well, yesterday Putin made his first reaction to the proposal from the US and Ukraine, the initiative from Trump and Zelensky to establish a 30-day ceasefire. He stated that Russia, of course, welcomes this proposal. We are definitely in favor of stopping the fire, but there are nuances. And here the list of nuances turns out to be enormous. In my opinion, this was a diplomatic no, but maybe you see it differently. So be sure to write in the comments. I'll read everything. I'm really interested in knowing your reaction. How did you perceive Putin's response? How do you interpret his words? In general, write it down. Now, let's continue analyzing the situation on the front. Let's open the map. So, friends, it's been 6 days since the offensive operation in the Kursk region began, and surprisingly, the Russian army is not slowing down. The pace is actually astonishing. Just look at the map. See this section? This is already territory beyond the city of Sudza, Alyoshenki and Goncharovka, large villages with a combined population of over 5,000 people. Then there's a series of smaller villages. Well, this entire area, covering 40 square kilometers, came under the control of the Russian army just yesterday. And the main thing is, these are not just fields. It's one thing if it were just fields and a couple of farmsteads, but no, this is dense residential development. And yet, the Ukrainian armed forces were driven out of these villages in literally one day, even less than a day. Both Goncharovka and Alyoshenki, plus the village of Rubinovo, all of this is now under the control of Russian troops. At the moment, the Ukrainian armed forces control only 4 villages with a total area of 78 square kilometers. That's all that's left of their Kursk foothold. Even though just a week ago, they controlled 400 square kilometers. Do you want to see exactly what kind of scale we're talking about? Let's switch to another map. Let's mark the date March 7 and take a look. Here's the boundary of what the Ukrainian armed forces controlled on March 7th. This is the line of contact. And here's the enormous territory that the Russian army has taken over in just a few days. The situation with the villages is particularly impressive. 25 villages have been captured in 6 days of the offensive. Yesterday, Putin stated at a press conference that the Ukrainian armed forces have no way out of the Kursk region. Either they lay down their weapons or, well, you understand what will happen to them. Follow the link in the description of this video to my Telegram channel. You'll see it all for yourself. Yesterday I talked about what's happening in the Kursk region with the Ukrainian armed forces soldiers who remain there. And you know there are a lot of 200s in the footage. Literally dozens of such images already. So, you can make a rough estimate of the losses suffered by the Ukrainian armed forces over these days. Now, about the possibilities for the Ukrainian armed forces to exit the Kursk region. Do they really have no way out? Well, technically, there is an exit along this road. But yesterday, Russian forces made a breakthrough deeper into the Sumy region. The total advance into the Sumy region now stands at 6 kilometers. I've posted footage of this breakthrough. As a result, there has been a confirmed entry into the village of Basavka. What does this mean? It means that in the coming days, the escape route for the Ukrainian armed forces from the Kursk region could be physically cut off. This road is now under constant fire control. And this is not just a pretty phrase. Absolutely everything that moves is being taken out. Though, to be honest, nothing is really moving anymore. I posted footage on my channel. You can see a burned-out column of the Ukrainian armed forces that tried to break through. But now it's impossible to escape using vehicles. Even a single infantry fighting vehicle wouldn't get through. And that's despite the fact that fire is still being directed from the village of Novienko. It's only 5 kilometers from there to the road. Now think about what will happen once stable control over Basavka is established. From Basavka to the road, it's only 2 kilometers. Let's break down this situation and consider what awaits the Ukrainian armed forces in the Kursk region now. We left off at the fact that it's only 2 kilometers from Basavka to the road, Asterisk asterisk. It's clear that now, as Putin said yesterday, you can't get through even on foot, let alone with equipment. Back on March 8-9, when the offensive began, we could still see footage of Ukrainian forces fleeing through, for example, this border checkpoint. Now there's no such footage anymore. Instead, there's other footage, the kind I've already mentioned. Essentially, physically cutting off the road will mean that the remaining Ukrainian forces that didn't manage to escape will end up trapped in a pocket. However, it must be said that there are already very few left. Yesterday, after the capture of Alyoshenki and Goncharovka, the Russian army also wiped out Ukrainian positions in Rubinovo in a single strike. This village is now under full control. Now there are only 2 villages left under the control of the Ukrainian armed forces in this sector, Gogolevka, a tiny village past Rubinovo. In fact, from what I've heard, the situation with Gogolevka has already been settled. Although the cartographers haven't updated the map yet, maybe they're asleep, I don't know, but the village has already been liberated and returned to Russian control. It turns out that there's practically nothing left of the Ukrainian forces in this sector. Do you see that these sections are already divided? There is now a northern section still controlled by the Ukrainian armed forces and a southern section, but communication between them has already been cut off. The only thing left on this part of the bridgehead is to drive the Ukrainian armed forces out of Oleshna, which the Russian army is currently working on. Now take a close look at the map and tell me, do you think that after the Russian army clears this area, it will stop and stand at the border? Or will it advance along the H07 highway toward Yunikivka? The question is actually rhetorical. I think you already know the answer. Especially considering that progress has already been made in the Basavka area, as I told you earlier. Thus, the offensive will proceed from 2 sides, from Basavka and from Oleshna. I don't think it will take much time. From Oleshna to Yunikivka, it's only 7 kilometers, and from Basavka, only 4.5 kilometers. As I mentioned in the previous report, if the army strikes with its full strength, and there are enough resources for that, the pace will be exactly the same as what we are currently seeing in the Kursk region. The Ukrainian armed forces positions in Yunikivka won't be able to withstand such pressure. They will have to retreat further, and then Sumy will already be within reach. In general, there can be no talk of the stabilization of the Ukrainian armed forces here. Now, if we go back to the Kursk region, it is clear that the Ukrainian grouping has already been divided into 2 parts. The northern part is practically defeated. The remaining southern grouping is the one holding out in Gayivo. There hasn't been much progress here yet, but you understand that the top priority was to push the Ukrainian armed forces out of Sudza and the neighboring villages. That task has already been completed. What's next? Asterisk asterisk. All that remains is to clear the bridgehead, and it's not very large, only 2 villages and 40 square kilometers. Agree, it's no longer as daunting as it was just a week ago when the Ukrainian armed forces controlled a significantly larger territory. And one more point I'd like to mention at the end, this concerns the main section of the front. Yesterday, Russian troops entered the village of Vasilivka. It's located here, to the west of Lidar and south of Sak Ivans. Why is this important? Asterisk asterisk. Remember, just a day ago I told you about the Siversky Donets, Donbass Canal. The Russian army took control of the village of Novomarkovka. This is part of the same operation to create a bridgehead for a subsequent breakthrough toward Kramatorsk. As you can see, this section of the front has also started to become active over the past few days. And the distance here is actually quite small. From those positions to Kramatorsk, it's only 16 kilometers. Moreover, from Novomarkovka, the terrain slopes downward. The positions are ideal for a breakthrough. Well, that's all I have for today on the situation at the front. That's it for now. I wish you a productive workday. See you tomorrow.